We're
Welcome.
live. Hello.
So it's officially 6:30, and we're going to be welcoming people in, and occasionally we're going to look over,
To see who's here.
see who's joining us. So this is our very first live event on Facebook. So we're learning as we go, but I will say we've had a lot of people ask us to do this. A big part of what we're going to be doing tonight is answering questions. So please load up with some good questions for us because we're going to do a little presentation. We're going to be inviting Bob Duco in shortly. He's actually waiting for us as we speak.
I just want to say, just so you know who we are, this is David Sanders. He's my baby brother. I am Julie Lamphere, and we've been at Brain Life Center for 15 years, and we're just doing this for the first time. So it's kind of exciting to engage with people here on Facebook. So we'll see.
Yes, since she
Brittany is here
nice.
from North Carolina. Awesome.
Lenore, hello.
Hello.
Fantastic.
Welcome.
So as people join us, and Julie decided to introduce us. Yes, we are brother and sister. Over the years, people have thought we were husband and wife. We're not. But we are brother and sister, and we're partners here. And we've been doing this for about 15 years now, which is kind of blows my mind.
Yeah.
I'm now in my late 50s. Julie.
Excuse me.
Recently.
Yes. I know I said he's my baby brother, but I'm not much older than that. No, I'm actually 60. I turned 60 this year, so.
So one of the things we're going to be talking about tonight, beyond the questions that you ask, is we're going to be sharing what we call our 5-point brain enhancement method. And this is something that has really been developing for 15 years.
Paige is with us. And did I see Kale?
Karen. Thank you, Karen, for joining us.
Yes.
Brittany.
Exciting.
Kale,
Maria.
yep.
I know I got that right, Maria.
Midea.
We're
yes.
glad you're here. Hello.
Is that Cotina?
Katina,
Nice.
right.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Oh, this is good. We see a lot of people coming in. So again, we're going to give it a little bit of time.
Tamara. I haven't seen you in a long time. Welcome.
Thank you, Tamara.
Glad you're here.
So I'm guessing this is Tamara and maybe Ron.
Oh, I thought it was, yes. I haven't seen him since last summer, actually.
Yes.
So, yeah. Good.
Thank you for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
So as people come in, just know that this 5-point brain enhancement method, I'm going to touch on it, but I will tell you that we were just talking to Bob. He is on hold. He's waiting for us. So we're going to be joining him in just a moment as a few more people come in. And I'm going to give you just a really rough rundown of this 5-point brain enhancement method. A lot of people that have come here know about it. And it's very interesting because we started 15 years ago with a primary technology, which was the EEG. It's an auditory mirror technology. Basically, we're placing sensors strategically on your head, and these sensors are picking up waves from your brain. So when a synapse fires, it creates a little burst of energy. That little burst of energy happening in time creates a wave pattern. If it's happening fast, we have high frequencies. If it's happening slow, low frequencies. Well, these are non-audible. And so we all know what high frequencies sound like. Obviously, they're higher pitch. Low frequencies go low. What's interesting is this technology has been led by computer scientists and mathematicians. And what's happened is they saw a lot of these wave patterns, saw the mathematics and the potential to translate the non-audible waves coming from the brain into sound. And because of computer technology, they are able to do this in real time. So it's millions of bits of information being translated into sound within milliseconds. So you're listening to your brain live, and what is just remarkable, and they started figuring this out about 20 years ago, we came in about 15 years ago. The remarkable thing is the brain starts to, it hears itself, it figures out that it's actually listening to itself. It's like a little baby in front of a mirror. It's moving, it's getting engaged with the mirror, and it's in that information loop that it figures out, hey, this is me. And that baby can figure this out before it understands language. your brain, when it hears its own activity live, figures out very quickly that this is in fact itself. And because it's a three-dimensional auditory version of itself, the brain starts using this to self-correct. And in a very short amount of time, people who haven't been sleeping properly for years, they'll start to sleep. People with anxiety will start feeling it starts to dissipate, it starts going away, they can relax, they have a more natural sense of peace. People with depression, they will see it lift. They start feeling more motivated in the morning. And it happens naturally, so it appears this is the brain's natural state. It wants to move towards a more self-regulated state. And all we have to do is show it a passive auditory reflection of itself. So Julie is going to pull in the reins on occasion, so I don't bore you.
I just want to say, just imagine you look in a mirror and there's a smudge on your face. The mirror does nothing but give you the information. You are the one that's removing the smudge. Same thing is happening with the brain. So we cannot hurt anyone with this. We're just giving the brain a perspective it's never seen before so that it can self-correct. So just think of a mirror that is giving you information your brain needs to know to improve itself. And then the results that he talked about come. So I'll just simplify it a little bit.
We need that desperately, so thank you very much. And so Bob is holding, and I will just say Bob came to us years ago for sleep, and he had a pretty serious sleep issue. And of course, it's very interesting. Bob's had a lot of conversations over the years with us about why does the brain seem to be designed to have this natural propensity to move towards a healthier functioning brain. And one of the things Bob's talked about over the years is he couldn't believe that placing these sensors and listening to these abstract sounds actually could have such an impact. But once he went through it and he experienced this shift, of course he's talked about it for years. So if we can, let's bring Bob Duco.
WZ The Light. We've been working with Bob over 12 years now, so it's been fun to watch his process, but he's been a big part of our time with Brain Life Center. So
you bet. Well, good seeing you guys. How are you?
Good.
Very good.
Well, good. Good seeing you. I can say that I feel very well rested. Had plenty of sleep last night, which I have to say this, David, Julie, this has become the new normal for me now. Sometimes I forget what it was like before because, as you know my story. I had severe insomnia for over 25 years of my life, and so that to me was just normal. And I know you know the story, and I've shared this on my show before, and I'll just kind of remind everybody right now. For me, what normal was I would go to bed at night, and I would typically take at least 2 or 3 hours to fall asleep. I would never fall asleep inside of 2 hours, usually 2 or 3 hours. And then I would sleep for maybe about 3, possibly 4 hours. And then I would wake up every night. And when I say every night, I mean every single night. After 3 or 4 hours, I would wake up. And then I would lay there. And I'd try to get back to sleep. And I would kind of doze in and out slightly until suddenly I see the sun starting to come up. It's starting to get a little bit lighter. And then eventually I'd have to get up. And so this was my daily routine. I literally would never sleep through an entire night. And then sometimes I would have nights where I wouldn't sleep at all, where probably about 3 or 4 nights in a row, I would go without a minute's sleep. So I would go to bed at night. I would lay there awake. It's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Eventually the sun comes up. I get up, I come in and I try to do my show. And then I go to bed that night and then the same thing, could not get back asleep. I'm not a fan of pharmaceuticals, so I wouldn't take sleeping pills, but eventually by about the 3rd night, I would have to take a couple of sleeping pills. And then I'd finally fall asleep and I'd be all groggy the next day. But then I'd get back to falling asleep after 2 or 3 hours and then waking up after 3 or 4 hours and then the same thing bouncing in and out. So that for me was easily 25 years of my life. And then of course it comes to you guys. And I still remember Kim coming to me and saying, you know what, there's these people and they're interested in advertising on your show. And I said, well, I need to meet them. I need to know what is it? well, brainwave optimization. I was like, okay, what does that mean? I don't even know. And so we got together, and the three of us and a couple other people from the station, we sat down, and you guys remember how brutal that time was, right?
We do.
Yeah.
Bob is kind of an intense skeptic, and he's
Well,
very comfortable with other people being uncomfortable. And yeah, he was talking about things like, how do I know this isn't a scam? When you
well,
talk about
that's what I
brainwaves,
said. I'm not going to advertise a scam on my show. How do I know this
yeah,
isn't a scam?
I really appreciated that about you, Bob. It's to me, it spoke volumes about your show, your integrity, and what you do. So I remember being impressed by that, even though it was a little uncomfortable in the moment.
it's
Sure.
interesting when you talk
Well,
about brainwaves, especially back in the
mhm,
day, people thought of things like new age kind of foo-foo stuff. They
right.
didn't think
Well,
about
that was my
science.
concern.
Yeah.
That was
Yes.
my concern, if you recall. I said, I need to understand the physiology and the science behind this. I need to know that this isn't some kind of squirrely new age. Oh, we're tapping into universal energies and auras,
Yes.
because I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole,
That was
And
definitely
of
something to
course,
overcome back then.
I
So,
know. Well, but so you guys know how this worked out, and my listeners know how it worked out too. I started the intensives, and as I jokingly say all the time, everybody else gets a little bit of gel and you stick them on, but Julie stapled them to my head.
It was
Uh,
fun. No,
but I will say this. I will say this. It's not like, hey, the first day after the intensives, I slept like a baby. It wasn't like that. It was probably about 4 or 5 times in, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not gonna. And actually, believe it or not, there were a couple of days where I slept worse than I normally do. And I remember going, Dave, what's happening? And you're like, you know what? That's okay. Your brain is correcting itself. Movement is actually a good thing. Some kind of change is actually a good thing. I said, all right. And then I remember after the sixth session, for me, it was the sixth session. It varies for people, but for me, the sixth one, I go to bed at night, and I don't know how quickly I fell in bed, but fell asleep, but it was easily inside of a half an hour. And the next thing you knew, I woke up the next morning, and I'm looking, it was 8 hours. And I was like, I haven't slept for 8 hours, and I don't know how long. And so I actually slept through the night for 8 hours. And what I had to start doing for the first time in decades, I actually had to start using an alarm clock, which is really amazing. So it's it's not a thing where, I'd love to say, hey, I put my head to the pillow and in 60 seconds I'm asleep. No, it's not that fast. For me, usually it's anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, for me, is about average. Now, for some people who fall asleep in 2 minutes, that may seem long. But for somebody who took 2 to 3 hours every night, 15, 20 minutes is nothing.
right.
And I can tell you, I do not wake up in the middle of the night. I really don't. As a matter of fact, Julie, you think 60, huh, you're a kid. I'm 63.
who said
And
60?
Thank you.
63-year-olds are supposed to have to get up and go to the bathroom, but I guess I'm in pretty decent health because I really don't have to. But if I do, on rare occasion, I'm back asleep inside of 1 minute when I'm back in bed easily. But the rest of the time, I just don't even wake up until my alarm goes off in the morning. And that's how it's been now for 12 and a half years, ever since coming to you guys in Brain Life Centers. So people ask me at speaking engagements and such, hey, Bob, just between us, is this, how real is this? And I'm like, what, you think I'm making this up? Okay. Ask my wife. This is what normal is for me now. So I can't say enough about it. It's helped with a lot of other things too. I mean, mental clarity and focus, and just you can tell when your mind is sharper than it was before. I think a good night's sleep plays a lot into that, certainly. So it is the real deal. I can say that for sure, and that's why I proudly and openly promote it on my show as I do.
I remember when we first started working with you too, Bob, you telling me kind of what your schedule looked like. And you have a pretty intense, demanding job. So I don't know how you did that without sleeping for 25 years, but I do question, I wonder if we wouldn't have gotten hold of you when we did, how much longer you would have been able to continue, because really it's amazing what you do. It takes a lot of mental clarity, it takes a lot of focus and a lot of attention. Not only do you have your daily full-time job, but you're out defending the faith on the weekends and at churches, and so I don't know, it's exciting for us to be a part of your journey, because you're out there fighting the battle and bringing people to the Lord and defending the faith. So it's been an honor.
Well, trying to, certainly. I don't know what it would be like if I had the last 12 and a half years the same way that the first 25 have been. I mean, I've been in radio for 25 years. Before that, I owned a sales training company. And so pretty much everything I've done, I've needed to use my brain. And I've just been used to going off of not enough sleep, and you just have to work harder when you haven't had enough sleep and when your brain is not as rested as it should be. So for me, it's made my job easier. I suppose if anything else, it's probably made my show a little bit better, because now I'm able to research a little bit deeper, spend a little bit more time on it, maybe be able to access and remember certain things to say on my show better than I did before, because my brain fog isn't nearly what it was previously. So, I would say all in all, it's been very, very positive.
Yeah, I know you only have a couple minutes. Can I just bring up one other thing that you mentioned that brought to my attention? You said that you were taking Ambien, and I just want to share that, early on in this work, I was confused to why I had so many people sitting across from me who were not sleeping, that were on all these sleeping medications. And I asked my doctor about it, and she told me that those meds don't give you quality sleep. They just knock you out from being anxious about your sleep. But then you shared that you would wake up groggy. I understand now why, because you really don't get quality sleep from taking those kind of meds. So
you really
this
don't.
Sleep, you're getting real, true, restful sleep.
Yeah, well, no, that's true. That's very true. So for me, it's made a huge difference. And I know it has for a lot of people as well. I will say one other thing, and I know you and I have talked about this before. The three of us have talked about this. I go on a lot of missions trips. And there was one missions trip that I went on. I went to Kenya. And I don't typically like to take vaccines and things like that, but you were required to take yellow fever medication and yellow fever vaccines and things like that. So it's like, well, all right. So I took these, and this particular medication that I was on, I found out that about 25% of people that take that medication end up having panic attacks. And I'd never had panic attacks in my life, and then suddenly I started getting panic attacks. Now, this was probably about 15 years ago or so that I was on this missions trip. And so I would get not very often, but I would get them. And it's like, this is insane. I feel scared to death that I'm going to die. And I'm like, but wait a minute, I'm a Christian. I'm not afraid of dying. So why am I feeling this sense of panic? And usually I would think myself out of it. I'd be like, okay, this is illogical. I'm a left brain logical guy, and this doesn't make any logical sense. I have no reason to be panicking, but I don't know why I'm feeling this. So, but I would have that happen to me from time to time. And I did some research on it, and it did say that medication can bring about panic attacks. And one of the things that I learned in talking to a neurologist about this is that once you have panic attacks, your brain kind of gets conditioned to get used to them, so you can end up having future panic attacks as a result of this.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I'm not living the rest of my life with panic attacks, and I'm not going to take medication to reduce them. And it never really occurred to me, but when I came to you guys 12 and a half years ago, and I started sleeping fine and whatever, I remember there was a time, probably about 6-7 months went by, and I was like, is this just a coincidence? I have not had a panic attack in the last whatever, and I've never had any since then. So for 12 and a half years, I haven't had panic attacks. Now, for my entire life, I never had panic attacks either. I only had them in about a 3-year window after I had this medication, this yellow fever medication for a missions trip I was on. But other than that, I haven't had panic attacks for 12 and a half years either. So it could be a coincidence, but I'm thinking it's attributable to this.
Well, something we talk about a lot here, we talk about our top 5, and in large part because of you, Bob, we've had a lot of people come in with sleep disorders. And so for many years, because you share your story, a lot of people come to us for that. We've helped thousands of people with different types of sleep disorders, and we've had a very high success rate there. But it's sleep, then anxiety, depression, focus and concentration like ADD, ADHD, and then we have people come for energy. Now we have other things like memory, cognitive performance, a whole range of things that are brain related, but our top 2, sleep and anxiety. So I would suspect that there's a good chance this may have played a role, but you can't know, right? You can't isolate.
Well,
I know.
I mean,
yeah.
well, I mean, obviously we can't know for sure, but to me the timing is so coincidental that it seems like it would make sense. What I'm waiting for is for this technology to improve so that it changes aesthetically the appearance of your face and makes you better looking. Okay, if you could get that going, then you'd take me from 99% sold to 100% sold if you make me good looking. But other than that,
Well, you can see by
no,
looking
I
at
can't
me,
say enough about it.
This is
Say
not
what?
something we've accomplished yet.
I know. This is where we actually really do trust in the Lord, okay? Because He can perform miracles like this.
You
But,
guys look great now. You look great. You're doing
No,
good.
no, thanks.
You're getting-
But no, I'll tell you what. To me, my favorite part of this is that it's all completely natural. It's how God designed the brain, and I know that that's a big part of what you're going to be talking about tonight. Is the God created functioning of the brain. God created the body to repair itself in certain areas, not all areas. If you break your bone, if you break an arm, God didn't design the bone to set itself. That's going to need to be done. But there are things that God did design to be able to realign and reset themselves. The brain is one of them. It just needs some help to do that. And so if the brain can see and hear itself and its own activity, God designed it to naturally realign itself and self-correct. And so to me, I really like the fact that this is natural, no drugs, nothing invasive, no messing with my brain. I remember telling you guys, I don't want to be clucking like a chicken because you implanted some kind of, like, no, nothing like that at all, 100% passive. So
Yes.
that to me is probably the best part of it. And that's about all I can say about it.
Hey, I love your analogy. You want to share real quick your analogy about the cut? We've used that many times.
Yeah, if you cut yourself, the prothrombin automatically acts as a coagulating agent to cause the blood to clot. This does this automatically. You don't have to do anything. The clotting is going to take place naturally. And in the same way with your brain, if your brain can just see and hear its own brain waves, you don't have to do anything. Just, the brain automatically starts correcting itself like a piano ovens are self-cleaning. I'd love for somebody to invent a self-tuning piano. Well, God created a self-tuning brain. It just has to hear its own brain waves. And that's obviously what this technology does. So I look at the science part of it. That to me is what's fascinating, but it's also fascinating to see the brain functioning the way God designed it to function. And I know that's where you're going to be moving the discussion next, talking about how God designed the brain.
Well, thank you very much, Bob, and have a
You
good
bet.
night. We look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
You bet. Great
Thank
seeing
you.
you.
Thank
Take
you.
care now. Bye-bye.
Bob touched on something that we have found very interesting, and that is over the years, as we developed this 5-point brain enhancement system that we were sharing with you. And basically, I'm going to just give you the really rough rundown, but just picture a set of support technologies that help power up the brain on a cellular level. So it increases oxygen flow in the brain, oxygen uptake. A number of things can actually improve the cell's ability to connect to other cells. And so when a brain cell does that, that improves your neural connectivity. And this powering up can actually calm the mind. So for somebody with anxiety, right, it can be calming. For somebody who's actually in a freeze state, it is fascinating how the brain just knows to move out of that freeze state. So they're both feeling a really high threat level. One's responding one way, the other another. But when the brain's functioning properly, the threat level comes down and they start feeling better naturally.
So you're talking about fight or flight versus freeze, the
That's right.
parasympathetic nervous system. Okay.
Exactly.
I'm with you.
So, and then, do you want to cover it? You want
Well, I
to
just,
jump in there?
because step one is powered up, I know that when I sit across the table from clients, sometimes clients feel like they don't want to be powered up, they want to be settled down. So that's important to know that
Thank you.
when we say powered up, we're talking about cellular health, which is going to help with everything we're looking to accomplish. But in that, it is the beginning of the brain settling down so that you can be in the driver's seat, which I know is coming. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's so just think of this as an analogy of a car. So imagine you have a beautiful car in your driveway, but it hasn't been, the battery's dead, there's no gas, it needs to be tuned up. The first step is to really power it up in a way. Now we're obviously doing this with the brain, and we have a series of support technologies that help us do this. These are optional, and not every client uses them, but once we get to know you and we have a sense of what it is you're hoping to accomplish, then we make recommendations. But that's the first step of the 5 points. It's powering it up. The second step is fine tuning. That's what Bob's talking about. This is our primary technology, and this is the one with the EEG sensors, the ground, where you're listening to these abstract sounds. But when you're listening to these sounds live, as Bob mentioned, the brain starts to self-correct. And there's this whole world of study around what they call cortical balance. But just know these changes are happening in the brain physically, and it's measurable. And of course, the most important thing, we might see a spike of activity come down in a particular location when compared to the rest of the brain. And the brain's just doing this naturally. But when we know that when that spike comes down, that might correlate with something like focus problems. We'll see the spike come down. Lo and behold, thousands of people, it always tends to lead towards, oh my gosh, when I read now, I'm not forgetting the last 2 sentences. I'm actually recalling what I'm reading. And so for little boys and girls who everybody knows there's an issue, it is amazing when the parents recognize, oh my gosh, he was looking at me and he was holding my gaze and hearing what I was saying for the first time in years. So it's just a very interesting part of this process, but it is the tuning up part. You want me to cover the next one?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
You're doing good. So
She's
that's
gonna
number
jump
2.
in.
Powered up. Number 2 is fine tune it.
Yes.
What's number 3?
Number 3, so picture the car in the driveway. It's now gassed up, it's ready to go. It's tuned up, the battery's ready to go. So we've got this thing revved up. We now want to learn how to drive it. And so for a lot of people, they've been blessed with this incredible brain, but they didn't know that they were doing things that were actually causing problems. And so one of the things we bring to the table at this point, the anxiety lifts. They're sleeping better now. They're like, oh wow, and they're really feeling confident in the process and the technology. And it's at this point where they're better able to hear us, and we present what we call brain enhancing modules, but we've got a number of them. We also call it practical neuroscience. But the idea here is we are presenting them with a very specific set of tools and techniques that will help them learn to drive this brain that's now functioning, that's now powered up and tuned up. And I can't tell you how many times we see people, it's like an epiphany for them. We'll introduce something at the right time, and suddenly they have a better sense of how to drive this brain. So that brings us to number 4.
Yeah, but let me just share with the
Please.
learning to drive it. A lot of clients will share that they feel stuck. They might even know the steps they need to take to move forward, but they can't do it. They feel like their brain is kind of being hijacked. For example, if you're in fight or flight, you might know there's not a threat, but your system is going into a fight or flight state. You can't sleep. Your body can't heal in that state, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's not asking your permission. So when we talk about getting in the driver's seat, when a client experiences that for the first time in years, and all of a sudden they feel like that same scenario shows up, and they're able to kind of pause and say, wait a minute, I'm all right. Kind of like Bob was sharing a little bit, like now they could think through it and be in the driver's seat of that situation and not feel hijacked. So I just think that's one of the beautiful things we get to hear from clients as they start to feel like they're able to move forward in ways they couldn't before.
Yeah, it's awesome. The confidence at this point is suddenly through the roof. Everything's changing for them. And now we get to put these things in place that make this long term, and they get more benefits from the technology. So, all right, so the 4th step, and this is an interesting area from a Christian perspective, this becomes inevitable. But the 4th step is now you know how to drive it, but you're just driving around the neighborhood. Now you want to figure out, okay, everything's working. I know how to drive this thing. Where do I want to go with it? So you've been blessed with this beautiful brain. You know how to drive it. And this inevitably leads to some existential questions, some thoughts about purpose and meaning. And so this was geared towards more of a Christian audience. As you know, we were talking about Jesus, but picture the teachings of Jesus as a transcendent set of moral values that if you can get in alignment with, when we see people get in alignment with something like, okay, what are my gifts at this point? Because they're excited, life is better. What am I going to do now? What they do, often we have very specific modules, but one of the things to consider is what are my gifts and how can I use my gifts to actually do something that is a noble mission that I can live into. And I can tell you, when somebody's dealing with anxiety or depression, unwanted racing thoughts, when they are at this level and now they're formulating a mission that actually is in alignment with proper morals, the teachings of Jesus, so to speak, it is the chances of them coming back or falling back into a deep depression are diminished greatly. And I mean, there's some fascinating studies out there showing this to be true. And a lot of these are actually from secular scientists who are studying the impact of a belief in God on mental health and well-being. So just know this has been an interesting path for us because at some point we try to bring this up in the most humble way. And sometimes we're dealing with somebody who's never considered, well, if everything is working better and I know how to drive this thing, where do I want to go? They've never even thought of that question. And when they think of it and start to fill that void, it is amazing the impact. So I know we've talked about this for years and kind of developed this, but any thoughts when you're talking to somebody about this? Like, where do you find yourself going?
It's just a beautiful thing when people open up to that, because you think about it, if you come in and you're not sleeping and you have brain fog or anxiety or depression, you're really kind of just trying to survive. So you don't have the wherewithal to ask those bigger questions sometimes because you're just trying to get through the day. So once someone is at that place and they're looking for that bigger picture, we have tools and techniques and resources that we can offer in a meeting. For example, sometimes we go down the path of forgiveness, and sometimes just breaking through of some unforgiveness is life-changing. God wants us to forgive, but when you're stuck, it's even hard to consider that. And as you move in that direction, you break free from that unforgiveness. That kind of breaks you free to move in a direction that is beautiful, like you're talking about. I mean, we have so many modules. I wish we could share all of them, but I don't want to be too long. But it is a beautiful thing to have that conversation at a time when the brain is more balanced and people are ready to ask those questions and make a forward-moving plan into a beautiful life that's purposeful and meaningful.
And I got to say, this forgiveness module that she's talking about, it's been refined over the years, and it was developed by a gentleman. He's a psychologist up in Alaska. He feels that this particular module saved his life, and that's how they developed it. So we're pulling it from them. There's these interesting moments where Christian tradition intersects and is being proven and really buttressed by contemporary neuroscience. And this is one of those areas. Forgiveness done properly, forgiving oneself, forgiving others. It's, again, we see these huge breakthroughs when we present this to somebody at the right time. So again, these Christian values are absolutely priceless, even in the most practical sense. Okay, so we want to not go too long here. So reel us in. Justin is kind of.
I want to say too, we want, please, if you're listening and you have any questions, we want to take a look at those questions and answer as many as we're able. So feel free to be putting your questions in all along as we talk here. I know Paige mentions that the last time that she was here, there was a lady that said she had brain fog from COVID and our technology helped. Pretty interesting what has happened with long haulers or with COVID. We've seen people be able to get their smell back. The brain fog, that's a big one. I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
The brain fog that sticks with people when they have long haulers. So thank you for bringing it up, Paige. That's true, and there's a lot of people that really want help with that still, all this time later.
I'm going to throw this in real quick,
Please.
just so because we've got to do all 5, right?
I thought we did. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. I'm just going to do this real quick.
Oh.
Number 5 is maintaining it.
Yes.
So just picture, power it up, tune it up, learn to drive it, decide where to go with it, and then maintain it. And so one of the things we do is during the protocols, we actually introduce, we call them neuroassociative exercises. These are like cream of the crop brain exercises that have been proven to help the brain on many levels. And they've been around for a while, but they have been refined in the last 10 years. anyway, we use these while you're going through the protocols, and then we give you these little neurosocial exercises that you can take home on your smartphone. And we find that when people do this, and it can be 2 minutes to 15 minutes a day, maybe 5 days a week, it's a powerful long-term solution to get the most. So, because we call people 6 months later, a year later, and we want to make sure that they're actually not falling backwards, that they're trending in a positive direction. It becomes a new norm. So I'll leave it at that. That's all 5.
Yeah.
And so we can answer some more questions. I see a list
So
here.
Richard, what would you say to Richard? He wants to know if you treat pain.
Oh, wow. God, again, reel me in a little bit, but there was a time, for years, we used to have to map out the brain. And because the technology was developing, there was a whole area around pain. And we found, not just us, but this team around the world, when they were looking at cortical balance, that there were certain areas of the brain where pain resides. And so really all pain resides in the brain to some degree, but there's certain locations that correlate with pain below the shoulder blades and others above the shoulder blades. So if it's a migraine, we actually used to go to specific locations. Now, as the technology developed, these sensors are thousands of times more sensitive than they were just like 5-6 years ago. And so we don't have to move them like we used to. That means we have a much larger brain or mirror of the brain's activity. And so now we don't have to move them around, and yet this cortical balance. So I will just say in brevity here, yes, the brain tends to self-correct. There were some really interesting studies around phantom pain. People would lose an arm and they were having pain in the fingers that don't exist anymore. And since you don't have to look into that to know that there's a glitch in the system, they would go right into these technologies and they would see a high success rate in that mistaken pain going away. So the answer is yes.
Yeah, and
it's definitely worth looking into.
It is really interesting because in the beginning we would be afraid to say it could help with pain because it didn't seem like it could. But as we worked with people, I had a client early on, his name was Brian. He was 21 years old. He had tried to commit suicide 4 times because he had so much pain in his body and nobody could tell him why. He was in and out of a wheelchair, and he was one of my very early clients, and I was like, boy, I would love to see this help you, but I'm not sure that's a big issue going on. But I do know this, that I can't hurt anyone, and we should try it before we move into some heavy medications. So we did. And it wasn't long that the depression lifted, but also he told me that he remembered the first night that he slept through the night without pain, and nothing had changed other than his brain had gotten into better balance. And so I want you to know, by the end of his process, his pain was massively reduced, his depression was gone, and his parents told me that we had saved his life. And what's really beautiful is what I've seen his life do since. But that just taught me the power of the brain when it comes to pain. He did finally, over time, find out he had a really rare form of arthritis. So he was able to deal with that as he went forward. But not knowing that and without meds, we were able to alleviate a lot of his pain.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give you another quick story. We had a woman come in years ago with, it was trigeminal neuralgia, I believe I'm
Glad
saying.
you said that. I can never pronounce that.
Well,
yeah.
it's nicknamed suicide disease. And when she first came in, if she moved her jaw in a particular way, it was so painful that she rated it a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10 in pain. And this is a woman who had kids. And so we were like, well, we didn't have any case studies, but we knew that we had done quite a bit of work with pain. And so we tried to just manage her expectations. Said, I would do it if it was my wife or my mother, right? She does it. Long story short, it went away. And it just blew her mind. And we saw her whole life change pretty radically. Well, and I want to say this real quick. That was our one and only case study until a number of years later, I ran into somebody else who had the same condition. And I just want you to understand this is kind of where we're coming from. When we had one case study, I connected her with this woman who was dealing with the same condition. And of course, her life was really, really hard. They talked. She comes in and does the same, goes through a similar set of protocols, and it did not work for her. And I just want you to know that to this day, we're 50-50 with the suicide disease, and that is something that, we'll always share with you. But again, if it was my family, I would definitely come in and give this a try because it's very safe, it's comfortable, and if it works, it's a long-term solution that's really more of a natural approach.
It'd be nice to reach out to her again, because sometimes we find out
That would be
that
beautiful.
later
Yeah.
some other things came about in the process. So we do have another question here from Wesley. Is this safe to do while pregnant? Absolutely. It's non-invasive. Again, it's like looking in a mirror. The mirror is just giving the brain information to do what it does best. And so we can definitely help people who are pregnant. And alongside of that is, Deanna asked, can you help with children and what ages? I didn't even have a chance to tell you this. I got a call from Elise, my daughter-in-law, and my son, Sean, today, and I have my 5th grandbaby.
Whoa.
Could be on, if they said probably before the weekend's out. So we're gonna have another little baby in the house. So what I will say is,
Wow.
all of my grandchildren, well, one has not come in yet, but all of my grandchildren have been in as early as 3 years old to use this technology, because I know that it's non-invasive, it can only help, and I want to give them every advantage that they can have. So, and our oldest client, I think she was 93. So we've done from 3 years old to 93 years old. So all ages can come in and see us here.
Yeah, the biggest thing is if we can place sensors and they can remain still just long enough that these sensors start to have impact in listening to the brain. But it's interesting that a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, they have no idea what's going on, and yet we'll see improvements. And so it becomes very noticeable very quickly. So just kind of picture, here's an analogy we've used over the years, but if most people have learned to ride a bike when they were kids. Maybe you're 5, 6, 7 years old. That's a very strange technology, a bicycle. But because maybe you saw other people riding it, you're like, okay, this can be done. And then maybe somebody that you trust provides a safe environment. You get on the bike, it's very strange. And everybody knows when you first get on it, it's a little scary, very unusual. It's really kind of a relatively new technology if you think of about a modern bike. And yet, 5, 6, 7 years old, within a very short amount of time, your brain and your body adapt to it. And all that complexity becomes second nature. And you're talking to your buddies as you're riding down the road. What we're finding is when we get somebody in the chair and we hook these sensors up and the brain can hear itself live, the speed at which the brain adapts and figures out, okay, this is actually my own activity live, totally passive, totally safe, but it hears its own activity in great detail and it starts to self-correct. And how it does it really, I mean, the brightest minds in the field of neuroscience don't fully understand, but by remaining passive and just offering the brain more information, like a mirror, it is amazing how quickly the brain wants to improve itself. So I hope that helps.
I hope so too. So Lenore wants to know, how much does a consultation cost? And that's a good question. It's called a discovery consultation. And from now until 8 o'clock at the end of this event, people can call in and schedule a discovery consult for $29. It's usually $99. So if you call 248-922-9490, I think is that number showing up on
Isn't it down below us?
I think it's down below. You can call that number, and they're here now to take calls, and you can schedule those and come. Know that when you do come, we're gonna have you fill out some paperwork so we can learn more about you, and then we're gonna have you go into the room where the process happens and actually get to sample the technology so you can experience it firsthand. And then you'll meet with one of us to go over your goals and discuss a recommendation of what the plan would be for you moving forward. So just coming in to learn about us, if you do nothing else, I think you'll love the experience and you'll know even more than what you're getting tonight when you get to experience it firsthand. So I saw another question I thought you might want to answer. Oh, Paige, have you added anything to the treatment in the last couple of years?
Yes. Have you added anything to the treatment in the last couple of years? In 2020, it was very strange timing. In 2020, March, when they shut us down, right? Because people come in, and this is something you've got to sit in the chair, and then we're implementing all the technologies. We had our biggest upgrade since we opened back in 2009. And so just imagine, because it's computer related, if you think of smartphones, how they've advanced just in the last 15 years, because this is computer related or reliant, the amount of data being transferred, basically translated and transferred back to the brain in less time, has been growing in leaps and bounds. And what the brain's able to do with this more three-dimensional version of itself in sound, it's speeding up. So I will just tell you, when Bob Duco came in years ago, we had 2-hour and 15-minute blocks because we had to move these sensors around. It was like the technology only provided a tiny little mirror that we had to move around a lot. 2 hours and 15 minutes. That was not easy. Today, it's around 35 to 40 minutes to get the same technology implemented, and we're getting better results. So you can imagine what that means for, say, a 7-year-old kid with ADHD. It's been a godsend. So yes, it's changed quite a bit. And I will say this too, we've incorporated, so when we talk about this 5-point brain enhancement method, many things have been developing and improving, and that's just an ongoing process. So not just the technology, the support technologies, but also this practical neuroscience that we're talking about. It's always being refined, and we talk about ourselves being sort of a practical laboratory. If we introduce something new and you're the client to experience for the first time, we'll be like, okay, would you care to experience this? The studies are great. We did this with our families, and now you're the first client. They know in advance. If they say yes, then we're following up. And when that goes from 1 client to 20 clients to 100 clients, at some point when we know this works, it becomes part of our system. And so just know there is an ongoing process of improvement for those reasons.
And there always will be in this work. I mean, that's just part of, for 15 years, the changes are amazing. And David especially is always researching about the brain and looking for what's new out there. So, if there's something that's showing up that's successful, he's going to bring it in and introduce it, and then we're going to have a chance to see how that works. And so people don't have time to do all that research. We've done it all. We've done it for you. And especially Dave, I say we, but I know he researches.
No, you've done it too.
I do in person, but he does so much. And so we like people to consider us the professional in that area and come see what the best, latest, non-invasive processes are to help improve the brain. So Karen Johnson, and my heart breaks just reading this, Karen. My youngest has developed anxiety issues and focus in school, recall from the whole COVID thing. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I know how hard it is to be a mom and have that experience. But I can tell you that we have helped so many young people. Your youngest, I wish I knew how old your youngest is, but it's heartbreaking how much our young people are dealing with anxiety today, what's going on. And it's I don't know if we just weren't aware when we were younger, but we see so many people in here struggling with those things. And so those are right in our top 5. That is exactly what we help with. And what's perfect for you is to bring your youngest in here and let us do that $29 discovery consult, because we'll let you know if it's a fit for him or her or not based on the experience here. But my guess is it will be a great fit, and we will be able to help your youngest. And so my children have breakthroughs, and I've often wondered, it's almost like you're moving along and the trajectory is heading down and the struggle is there. You come in, you go through this process, and suddenly the trajectory is moving upwards and getting better and better. And so your youngest doesn't have to continue to spiral down. They can start to spiral in a positive direction. And I love working with young brains because they have so much neuroplasticity. They're just ready for this technology. So I hope we get a chance to meet this young one, because I know we can be of help.
Yeah, we're really confident with anxiety. And there's so many little variables, from panic attacks to maybe just a low-grade perpetual anxiety that just wears on you. But we're excited. We'll enjoy showing you and kind of getting to know him, and then guiding him down a particular path that's just right for him.
Or her.
Or her. Oh,
we
is it
don't
her?
know.
Okay.
We don't know which. It could be either.
Yes,
We just know the
yes.
youngest. So here's one for you, Dave. Does the mainstream medical community use this treatment?
I would say yes and no. So years ago, because we work with so many people that are patients at some neurologist's office or a psychiatrist's office, that we've had a lot of people inquire and wonder, well, what's going on here? At one point, we had a psychiatrist ask us to set up this equipment in the system in their traumatic brain injury unit at one of the major hospitals in Detroit. And I will say that I think there's an advantage to this being led by computer scientists, engineers, and mathematicians that has made it move very rapidly. So it's wonderful. We love to talk to the doctors involved. Sometimes it's a family practitioner, sometimes it's a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a neurologist. We're always excited to talk with them and kind of share what we're doing. But more often than not, they're not terribly familiar with it. They have a little surface knowledge, especially our full system of technologies, right? Because it's very customized for each individual. Some people will use A, B, and C technologies, and then the primary, and then a whole set of practical neuroscience, and somebody else will be very different. But so it's kind of a yes or no when you say.
Yeah, but I will say this. We've had quite a few doctors, therapists, counselors work with us, and usually what happens is their child or their spouse comes in and they see this dramatic change in their life, and then they got to come in and check it out, and then they start sending our patients. Like Dr. Stephen Hardy, we helped his son with get off medications for focus. I mean, he took him off the meds. Our technology made that possible. And they said they got their son back, like his personality came back because he didn't have to take those meds anymore, and he was able to focus better than even on the meds. And so I think he sent us over 100 patients to help with focus. Yeah. Or Dr. Prasad, he's a cardiologist.
This is my cardiologist, Dr. Hartz. Remember, so my
Stephen Hartz is I said Hardy. Stephen Hartz. That's yes. Who I meant. Yeah.
His wife came in, but just a life-changing experience. It was really Dr. Hartz that got my cardiologist to come in, but it took a few years because it's like this seems like what is this crazy stuff? But when he did come in, it was a radical improvement. He didn't even expect it. In fact, he ended up getting off of high blood pressure meds that he had been on for many years. This is my cardiologist, a heart doctor. And he's very meticulous on measuring everything and making sure. So it was a slow weaning off process. But since then, he has sent us a number of patients who've also gotten off high blood pressure meds. And he monitors it very carefully along the way as they wean off them. It's just amazing. He actually helped me with an erratic heartbeat, and he ended up helping me get off some medication by going through, he was starting to recommend specifically a way to go through these technologies so that I could get off the meds. So yeah, there's this interesting blend, and we love it when doctors do get involved, and we love sharing with them what we're doing. So
yeah, so it's been fun. I just got off the phone with a doctor today who works at Oakland University, and she's been sending some of her clients, patients to us, and it's been fun to see the results. So I don't know if it'll ever end up actually, what we don't do specifically, what probably won't ever end up in the medical community, but they are playing around with some of these kind of technologies.
They're inquiring a lot more because it works. They see the results, and it's really is like my cardiologist says. He loves the fact that it's no medication necessary. He loves the fact that you can resolve a lot of these issues without medication. So coming from my cardiologist, I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, his change was dramatic. Do you know what this is, transcranial magnetic stimulation?
You know, I looked into it.
So Laura wants to know how this is different than transcranial magnetic stimulation. Just the word stimulation tells me that it's invasive, and we're non-invasive. So, but maybe you can tell a little more. I don't know enough about that.
Yeah, so obviously we're researching a lot of technologies. This one came up. There's a company down in Florida that makes these really unique looking pieces of equipment. But remember, so I become more of a specialist. We learn about the technologies we bring here. And I know a lot more about the technologies we use than the ones that we started to research. But the interesting thing about if I have the correct technology you're thinking of is there's actually, it's more intrusive. They're triangulating and creating a hot point of basically electromagnetic or a magnetic stimulation. So it's actually physically stimulating, and it has to be done very carefully and cautiously, so I'm told. And the research I did do, I just felt like we love technologies that we know are very safe, and we love the idea from a Christian perspective. It's like, okay, the brain is quite the miracle. It's incredibly complex, the most complex system known to man. Let's approach it with humility. And it's really interesting to talk to engineers and founders of some of these technologies and really have a sense of where they're coming from. The passive auditory reflection really fits that. And I think that's partly why it's been so successful, because they don't assume that they know how the brain should be. Rather, they just keep improving this complex, high definition auditory reflection, and then the results are better. So nevertheless, I wouldn't want to talk down a technology that I don't know enough about, but the reason we didn't bring it here is because it seemed a little more intrusive and it wasn't as safe as we would like it to be.
Yeah, we know that if you spent 50 years studying the brain, that person would say we know very little bit about the brain. So to me, it concerns me when there's technologies that are actually manipulating the brain because we don't know enough about the brain to make those decisions, in my opinion. So it makes me a little nervous, but I just like that ours are non-invasive and we let the brain do what it does best.
And it seems, it's not just safer, but these passive reflections, they seem to have a higher success rate. Sometimes you get brighter minds that are just, they're the genius in the room all the time. And in their specialty, they're thinking, I know how the brain should be. And they're not fully acknowledging the complexity. Well, they'll try to push or pull or manipulate. And a lot of times the end result is they're just not as successful. And so we will look into like mission statements, talk to the people involved. And sometimes it's like, oh, I don't know that that fits into what we're doing at Brain Life Center. So
we do have some more questions. I don't mind sticking around longer, but I know people can
58
come and
minutes.
go. We've been going an hour,
Yes.
so do we want to?
Why don't we probably should wrap it up, but if you want to pick a question.
Well,
What do you think, Justin? Should we? About an hour is probably more than enough. Okay.
No, people probably come and go too, but
Yes,
I
yes.
hate to leave people without their questions answered as well, but we may have to. A couple of the questions are asking about traumatic brain injuries that happened years ago. Can we help with traumatic brain injuries? Absolutely. That's really our specialty is dealing with trauma. So what I would say about, as soon as I read that, I thought of this vet we met. He had been in the Vietnam War for 40 years. He had been going to the VA trying to get help. He came in with his mother and his sister, and I could share this because he shared his testimony. A lot of these testimonials, that if we're sharing it, we've been given permission to do so. But his mother and daughter were saying, we don't know what to do anymore. We've tried everything. He's getting more angry. Things are getting harder at home, and they didn't want to leave him, but they also wanted to feel safe in their home, and they were desperate, which is sometimes what it takes for people to come visit us. And his testimony is beautiful because he said, first, Jesus Christ saved his life, and second, Brain Life Center. So I thought that was a pretty high compliment. Totally turned him around in the area of anger, all of the things, depression, he had been suicidal, all kinds of things he was struggling with, turned it totally around, and he got to spend some pretty beautiful years with his family. Moving forward, they were all so grateful. So that's one that comes to my mind. I don't know if you have one that comes to your mind.
Well, so we've helped a lot of vets, a lot of first responders. We had a police officer who, the description was, I feel like you took a huge backpack full of bricks off my back, and I didn't realize I was carrying it. That's how they felt. We had, so a lot of times it'll be a physical trauma, a stroke, somebody had a head injury. We had one gentleman was a hockey player. He got hit many times in the head, but one time the puck hit him just under the helmet in the back of the head, and he immediately lost his ability to play at a high quality, right? And this guy was a pro. They pull him off the ice, he ended up retiring. And when he came and experienced these technologies, it was a really substantial turnaround. So a lot of times it's a combination. With the veteran, sometimes there's some physical injury and there's psychological injury. Right. We don't have to know the details of the trauma because we know that when the brain gets to see itself, we're talking about a very complex three-dimensional image in sound. And the brain is doing things that we don't fully understand. But if there's trauma, we'll see it actually work on that trauma. We might see it in a brain map. Cortically, if they call it cortical balance, there might be a spike or a big split, right, left hemisphere, different lobes. There's a lot to this, but just know that we show the brain these areas in detail. Well, show it
a mirror of itself.
Yeah, the auditory mirror.
Yeah.
It sets about self-correcting, and I'm telling you that the brain. One of the things you see in contemporary neuroscience all the time is they're always going, the brain is more adaptive than we thought. This plasticity is greater than we thought. The brain continues to create new neurons till we die. They used to think when I was a kid that it was all you get until about 25. From there, it's all downhill. Not true. They just found out a little while ago that's not true. So anyway, physical trauma, psychological trauma, very similar. And we definitely recommend coming in and doing one of these discovery consultations. Let us show you what we're doing and let us dive a little deeper into what you're struggling with.
Yeah, the brain wants to rewire and work around that trauma. And if it can see itself, it can see a better path, a quicker path to make that happen. for itself.
Yeah.
So we can't know every situation up front, but when we talk with you, we can really give you some idea what to expect. We've been doing it long enough now that I think we've got a pretty good feel about it. So I would just say any of those kinds of questions, just come check us out, because to not check us out, you could be really missing out on an opportunity for life change. And for $29, you can just come in and check us out and try it out for yourself, meet our team. We have the most amazing team. I'm just going to tell you right now, this loving, nurturing, amazing team of men and women who are just here to serve. We're on mission here to make a difference, and you'll know that right when you come in the door. It's pretty. When I think about the greeting they get from Wendy and Melanie, and
awesome.
the phones with Karen. We got Justin sitting here with a big smile. He won't make a peep, but he's over here. We're thankful to have you. I mean, we just have an amazing team, and our clients tell us that all the time. Like, where did you find these people? And it's like, well, I think God found them and placed them here for these clients that we have. So it's a blessing to work with them.
So yeah, I mean, the big thing is it's a 90-minute, we call it a discovery consultation, but there's a portion of it where we're doing some assessment. There's a part of it where you're going to get to see one of our technology rooms, and you'll be introduced to a number of the technologies, especially our primary technology. Then we're going to sit down with you and go into detail about what it is you're hoping to achieve. And then we start piecing together a very custom set of protocols for you. So, and everything will make a lot more sense. I mean, we've got a lot of visuals. We've got videos, we've got things that we're going to be able to show you based on what we learn from you. And so that's why this 90-minute discovery consultation is very important for you to really understand what we can do for you.
Yep, and Richard, yes, a spouse can come in, a friend can come in, we've had whole families come in. So yes, you're welcome to bring your loved ones into the evaluation, because sometimes they bring some valuable input as well. And then you have a second set of ears and eyes to learn what it is we do and help you make that decision. So we encourage that for sure.
Well, we have officially gone an hour and 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, we're going to do more of these.
Yes.
If we get good feedback and we feel it's a success, and we're hoping and praying that it's been a benefit to you, that we do have a plan to do some more of these. We're talking about maybe doing one specifically on sleep, maybe doing one specifically on anxiety, and we can just dig a little deeper into those issues. So, we hope that you'll join us, and we can answer more of these questions then, right?
Yeah, and you can call, you can email us, you can send, but if you have things you'd like us to talk about, a lot of people want us to talk more in detail about sleep, anxiety, depression, focus and concentration, as usual. But there's some people that are interested in how this affects memory, long-term, short-term. So if it's brain related, send us a little message and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
See, our great team, they're helping us out.
Oh,
so
yes.
Karen just reminded us that not only do you have till 8 o'clock tonight to get the $29 discovery consult, but we have $6,000 of prizes. Yeah, where is our beautiful gift, Karen? We'd like to show them our beautiful gift.
Yeah, if you want to bring it in, we'll put it in front of the camera.
We're giving away $6,000 in prizes and gifts, and so is the only way to get in on that to do the $29 discovery consult?
Well, if
or
you do,
anyone registered.
If you purchase a discovery consultation at the 70% off, the $20, that's automatic. You'll be entered, and that's really through to tonight. So if you could either call or even go online. All right, so the team put this together,
This
especially
is one of the
Wendy.
gifts. I know there's
can
more.
we see that? Is that?
Where'd Justin go?
Hopefully
we can't see.
Yeah, are we in?
We must, because if I'm in the frame.
I guess it is.
Isn't that pretty? They do such a good job. So it's this
And then-
one. There's a grand prize winner of that gets what?
We're
How much
giving
is the grand
one
prize?
that's just over $2,000, and that includes, of course, a gift certificate good towards our services. They put this together, like the little drawstring backpack, water bottles and things. But we're giving 8 of these. Is that right, Wendy? 8?
Yes.
8 of these. So again, we're going to be doing the drawing tonight, and we're going to be announcing the winners tomorrow. So if you're here, just make sure that you've given us some contact information so we can enter. If you sign up for the discovery consultation, you're entered in for the grand prize. If you just give us contact information and you're new to us, we're going to put you in the drawing for this. And then,
They can't see it, but we love our cup because it says, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Romans 12:2. That's a favorite scripture around here. So.
yeah, anybody that books a discovery consultation tonight, we're going to be giving you this little gift when you arrive as well.
I feel
so
like
that'll
Vanna.
just be automatic.
Vanna.
Is that good?
It's okay.
Okay. Hey, you made her
It was
laugh.
Wendy's beautiful laugh.
Okay, so we're at. I think it's time to wrap it up. Did we miss? Well, we might. We're going to definitely do this again. We're going to announce probably this coming month, maybe in the next 3 or 4 weeks. We're going to do another one. We'll announce online, so please connect with us, and we'll let you know what the topic's going to be. Like I said, it might be sleep, anxiety, depression. That seems to be high on the list, but we'll go a little deeper into that. And if you want to learn something really unique that might be unique to you or a family member, set up the discovery consultation, because that's where we'll really go deep into those unique things.
Yep.
So if it's brain related.
248-922-9490. Gotta say it. BrainLifeCenter.com is our website, right?
Yeah.
So they can go there too and learn a lot. So
Thank you for coming, and we appreciate you just learning about what we're doing. Oh yes, Justin's pointing to the camera.
we're learning.
We're not pros, but we're learning. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you here in the office, and or maybe talking to you again very soon.
God bless you. Thank you.